In Alaska, the Coast Guard battles the elements to rescue people from Mother Nature's perilous grip.
It's pretty crazy to have this much fog or mist with 30 knots of wind.
When a vessel runs aground in harsh weather, the team pushes through gale-force winds to reach them.
The wind would come up and blow down and blow us around pretty good.
Close to Air Station Kodiak, the crew attempts a dangerous hoist to reach a hiker in a precarious position.
We have a very high-risk hoist to do. He has nowhere to go, so let's make sure we're doing this right.
And icy fog will not stop the Coast Guard from reaching a seriously ill patient in a remote Alaskan village.
We're gonna burn through all these O2 bottles before we land. A slower, less bumpy ride, or you're good? Faster the better.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, the highly trained men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
So we're ready for taxi. All right, guys, a little bit of a tailwind. No worries. And we're good? Yep, clear up.
My name is Lieutenant Chris Enixon. I'm a pilot up here at Air Station Sitka. We just received a call for an urgent medevac from a 72-year-old male who's suffering from respiratory issues.
We are airborne from Air Station Sitka, and we are en route to Angoon medevac.
Angoon is a small, isolated island. The only way to get there is by float plane or by ferry, or in this case, by helicopter. The patient was pretty critical, so we wanted to make sure that we got there as soon as possible. The only problem is this route puts us in small valleys, narrow valleys. Could be a very challenging flight.
A little bit of a, wouldn't really call it a fog, would you? It's almost like an ice fog, maybe.
We've got limited visibility, somewhere around 2 miles, and we've got snow showers in the area.
Little bump coming up here, guys. Everything's set up as far as the litter and everything. Okay, roger, thanks.
My name's David White, I'm AST-3 at Air Station Sitka. The patient had pneumonia. He was breathing on his own, but his vitals were diminishing. The patient needs lots of oxygen. That's going to be his best medicine.
We're about 15 minutes out. Yep.
The weather's pretty bad. Today, this is going to be the only means of transportation for this member to get off the island because commercial Alaska can't get in there.
All right, guys, Angoon in sight. All right, stand by for door speed. Okay.
Angoon's an unprepared surface. It doesn't have a hard stand runway, so we're going to be landing in a ball field.
And you have a door speed. Roger, Captain, door speed. So we got Eagles, 3 o'clock low. You'll tails clear the power line. Easy down. Tail wheels 2 feet above deck, easy down.
We did get a little bit of a dust cloud, but we cleared that pretty quick. Got on deck.
Okay, we're not sinking. Everything's clear. Very nice. Thank you, sir. Roger, I'm gonna help Dave carry his stuff, sir. Okay.
We're expecting to see an ambulance, but the sheriff told us that he's going to give us a ride to the clinic.
Do you know any details?
No, I got no more than you do.
Okay.
Living in the remote villages here in Alaska, there's a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to medical issues. Even their power source is unreliable. They had experienced several power outages that day. He was in some pretty serious respiratory distress. His O2 saturation levels were going down. His body's not absorbing as much O2 as it needs.
1, 2, 3, up.
My main concern was to keep O2 on him and to monitor his vitals.
Here's the O2 right here. Okay, let's roll.
The hospital didn't have any portable O2 bottles, so we had to use ours.
3-4, we have patient loaded up, and we are about to head your way over.
I looked back and saw the patient's family, and I could tell they were very worried, but they're relieved that he's on his way off to get some higher care.
Lots of fluid in his lungs. He's breathing on his own, that's good.
When the swimmer came back, the biggest thing we're looking at is the weather. We want to know what the weather's going to be en route.
We had just come through there and it was doable, but the weather's always guaranteed to change. So you can have the best plan and the best idea of what the weather is, and the only thing you're guaranteed is it's going to be different.
You guys just let me know when you're ready for takeoff. Stand by.
My first priority of business was I hooked up the O2 sat on his finger. He was borderline to where I would need to put the bag valve mask on him and breathe for him.
All right, we're all good to go back here, sir. Okay, all right. Have doors closed. Clear forward, all right. Have doors closed and locked. Couple potholes coming up.
We got to be cautious on our departure. We're traveling down a waterway with 3,000-foot mountains. The winds will actually funnel through these mountains and create downwashes. That's what's creating all the turbulence that we got today. You can lose 200 feet in a blink of an eye.
More potholes coming up here. Need anything from us? A slower, less bumpy ride, or you're good? Faster the better. Okay.
We need to go as fast as we can. We're running low on oxygen.
We're gonna burn through all these O2 bottles before we land. You think so? Yeah, we are.
When I was reassessing his vitals, I checked the PSI on the O2 tank, and it was low. I had only one bottle left, and I knew we had about another 30 minutes of flight time left. If this patient's unable to get O2, he's gonna go downhill very fast.
Count his breaths when I say go. Okay.
While I was checking his vitals, I had the flight mech count his respirations.
What you got? 18. There's 1,300 PSI left in this bottle, Dave. Sorry, ETA, sir? About 40 minutes.
We were gonna be cutting it very close, possibly even running out of O2.
A little bumpy coming through here, guys. There's 1,100 PSI in the bottle. All right, we get some snow. A little bumpy. We're right at 700 PSI, Dave. If we run out of O2, it's gonna be bad. Okay.
We were kind of running through oxygen bottles quicker than we had expected. They were down to the last bottle, and that they were burning through that bottle pretty quick.
Sector Una from Rescue 34. Have somebody get an extra O2 bottle. We're running real short on oxygen. As soon as we get there, we want somebody waiting with an O2 bottle. How copy? Roger. No way.
It's absolutely critical that this patient remains on high flow O2.
Ready for approach? Got it. Ready for approach. Yeah, all of us has O2 day.
Our O2 tanks have 2,000 PSI in them, and it was under 200 PSI. And that comes down to minutes.
Nice timing, sir. Thanks. All right, there's the ambulance.
But as soon as we shut down, the ambulance pulled right up next to the helicopter. We loaded him and handed him off to Sitka EMS. Here in Alaska, there's a chain of survivability. We cannot afford to be complacent. We have to treat each search and rescue case for a worst case scenario, and we do that very well. It makes me very proud to be part of this team.
My name is Joyce Frank. Johnny Jack Jr. is my father. I'm just really grateful for Coast Guard. They can come out when it's life or death. When the people that are so sick and they have no other way of getting to a hospital. Right now, all you can do is just hope and pray that everything turns out and just be there for him.
A 35-year-old guy walked away from camp at 1 yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
And hasn't been seen.
Okay.
Said he had cotton clothing.
Right.
And didn't take rain gear.
Knowing that the person had been out there for hours in wet, cold temperatures with only a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans, we wanted to move quickly to get out there because in that situation, somebody could easily be hypothermic.
We have a very high risk hoist to do. He has nowhere to go. Okay, so let's just make sure we're doing this right.
I'm an AST-3 White at Air Station Sitka, Alaska. It's our first day of our field portion of the cold weather survival school. Cold weather survival training is very important for the Coast Guard. Here in Alaska, there's lots of remote villages. And the crew just went to one of them for a medevac. Something could go wrong and they have to do an immediate landing, and they may be there for 12 hours to 48 hours. You never know. Places out here are so remote, so they have to be able to take care of themselves until help can arrive.
Anywhere out here, that's just where you want to go, find your shelter. I advise to get a good shelter started, burning daylight.
So before we start running around, do we actually want to kind of think about what we're going to do first?
I'm Commander Ward Sandlin. I'm the commanding officer at Coast Guard Air Station Sitka. So the first exercise today is to find a place to build our shelter. We learned in the classroom what we're supposed to look for, what we're supposed to avoid.
If we'll take this way, and you guys want to go that way, or does that sound good?
That sounds great.
What'd you guys find?
Oh, wow. The only problem with this is this tree right here.
Oh yeah, look up top there. Let's move someplace else.
That's a darn good spot.
We could build a pretty sweet little shelter out here.
Do you want to make a heel mark there, Eddie?
Who wants to build? I don't care.
I'd love to build. We're going to start to build the frame and get us hopefully a waterproof shelter for tonight.
The key to this is just really divide and conquer it. It's going to be dark here before we know it, and we don't want to be sleeping out in the open.
It's pretty important that we can get it watertight as soon as possible. We're losing daylight quickly.
It's always raining, it's always cold, so their number one danger by far is hypothermia.
I'm sitting on the ground and I can feel the cold.
Yeah, here. Keep that, scoot behind.
What was that?
That was one of the main things.
Which one was it?
Anything we could just wedge under there?
Yeah.
Got a big log.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. Money.
Now it's not long enough. Hey, Chris.
Feed it.
All right, ready?
Ready. Oh, hold on. It's so close.
This team's working great together. I mean, everybody's getting along. Everybody's still happy. You know, of course, it's the first day, and then we'll see if the shelter holds over the night, especially the winds kick up.
All right, hold it. Perfect. We almost had a catastrophic failure. Victory is ours.
It's been a good first day, but right now we're having sustained gale force winds and it's raining. It's gonna be cold.
Just got called in last night. The decision was to do a first light search for this guy. I guess they're not very well equipped right now for a survival situation. First thing I hear is that we've got a missing hiker down near Kodiak Bay. So the first thing that I'm thinking of is it's fairly close. There's fairly high mountains, up to about 3,000 feet, deep valleys, rivers, ridges. We have 4 members of the Kodiak Island Search and Rescue Team coming with us to help us with the land search.
35-year-old guy walked away from camp at 1 yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
And hasn't been seen.
Okay.
They have a couple of tents there.
Mm-hmm.
He's familiar with the area, but they said he had cotton clothing.
Right.
And didn't take rain gear.
Mother Nature up here in Kodiak is unpredictable. It's just a bad place to be in the rain, essentially wearing cotton clothes. You know, a missing hiker case, you just hope they have some kind of signaling equipment. Got a lat long of the tent. That's probably where we're going to start our search, see what's going on. Potentially split these guys up into 2 and 2, or however you guys want to organize it. Weather is not great. It's pretty good rain out there right now with some mist. We got a 1 degree temperature dew point spread, which means fog could creep up in any one of these coves. Any questions?
Here are some helmets.
Sounds good.
Lieutenant Mark Heisner, I'm a H-60 pilot here at Air Station Kodiak. Knowing that the person had been out there for hours in wet, cold temperatures with only a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans, we wanted to move quickly to get out there because in that situation, somebody could easily be hypothermic.
Prepare takeoff. Prepare takeoff. Pretty bad precipitation, yeah. Yep. Definitely not going through the pass. Nope.
So we've got pretty good position data on where this hiker's tent and camping equipment was. He's also out there with a companion. So the first thing we want to do is touch base with them, and hopefully, you know, he filed a plan with his friend, basically telling us what direction he was hiking in.
Something on the ground there. There's the yellow tent. Roger, ready for approach.
When we arrived on scene, we easily spotted the yellow tent where the two personnel that were out there were staying, one of which was now lost. There was also a large field next to it, which we decided we could land in.
Looking good, looking good. Roger, cabin doors coming up.
At that point, we dropped off the 4 Kodiak search and rescue personnel.
All 4 outside your rotor rack. Roger. All right, I'm back in a gutter spout inside the cabin.
After we dropped off the Kodiak search and rescue, they actually started a ground search. We began an aerial search to kind of search the further out areas where the Kodiak search and rescue personnel were not going to be able to get to.
Okay, his eyes peeled. Not the right side. Stay along the coastline. I'll be looking at the little ravines here. Hopefully, you know, it didn't fall in. I'll drop down to like 200 feet.
Being coasties, we like to search over water, so one of the first things I recommend is to do a shoreline search. There's deep valleys, rivers, ridges, canyons. He could be anywhere.
Looking good, looking good. Roger, cabin doors coming up.
After we dropped off the Kodiak search and rescue, they actually started a ground search. We began an aerial search of the area. The information we received was that he had gone hiking in jeans and a sweatshirt and had been out there for hours. In that situation, somebody could easily be hypothermic.
I'll be looking at the little ravines here. Hopefully, it didn't fall in.
There's deep valleys, rivers, ridges, canyons. He could be anywhere.
All right, guys, we're on the search pattern now. So if he wandered off, got hurt, he might be stationary.
I can't see much, but so I got the scan going.
2/3 of the way through our planned search area, we got a call over the radio saying that they had located the person and that we were going to have to do a vertical surface hoist because he was on the side of a cliff.
Sir, what's the story? It's kind of vague.
Yeah, so they found him. They found him on a cliff. Unable to climb down.
Hopefully he'll be in good condition.
My name is Jason Menezes, flight mechanic here in Air Station Kodiak. When I heard that this hiker was on the side of a cliff, I had a million different thoughts. This was my first cliff operation. On the way out there, we talked about every scenario in our head. Once we got on scene, a lot of the scenarios that we talked about were thrown out the window.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Sitting there.
So this cliff is huge. We come around the corner at about 200 feet, and that cliff is going well over our head.
He looks cold. Poor guy.
6010 Kaisar, we're gonna head back. The tide's coming up. We're gonna get trapped out here. Over.
6010, we've got Matt in sight, and we'll take it from here. Over.
A cliff rescue for a Coast Guard helicopter pilot, that's what we call a low-frequency, high-risk event. It's certainly something we train for, but it requires a whole different skill set than doing any rescue over water.
We have a very high-risk hoist to do. He has nowhere to go. Okay, so let's make sure we're doing this right.
Let's talk it, sir. It's briefing.
AST-1 Claude Morrissey, U.S. Coast Guard Station Kodiak. So basically, as a vertical surface, as a swimmer, you go down, attach to the helicopter, you knock it off the hook, and you take a quick drop down, and you hook the individual in, and you lift them off, pull away from the cliff, and then hoist them up to the helicopter. It's very unforgiving, so you're constantly thinking of the what-ifs, you know.
That's quite the drop right there to that creek. Claude, you looking out the window?
I'm looking at him. He's in a little pocket.
So you see you got him, right?
Yeah.
You got a couple shelves. He's on a shelf. A little one, obviously.
Actually goes out a little bit above him.
It protrudes actually out above him, which is going to be difficult. Obviously, we can't get him to move anywhere.
He was in a little bit of a nook, and one of the things that we actually had an issue with was right above the person, the cliff face actually moved outwards again, so he was kind of hidden under a little bit of a shelf.
If we can't get close enough next to the cliff, we might have to get on top of the cliff. We are 100% going to be rubbing on that cliff edge. I'll give you as much as I can, but...
Yeah, we're going to have to do this somehow, so we're just going to have to do it.
The problem that we had was with that little overhang above the person, our hoist cable could actually rub on the rocks, and if that happened, you have the possibility of the hoist cable parting. The rescue swimmer could actually fall off the cliff, or we could have a rescue swimmer and another person stuck on a cliff and needing rescue.
Any questions, guys?
No questions.
Are you ready to do this?
Hoorah!
After all the good ideas are, put into one pot, we see what our best plan is, and it's time to put Claude out the door.
Someone's going up and outside the cabin door for load check. Load check complete. Someone's going down.
I was going down, you get lowered out the door and you're 300 foot, 400 foot above the ground. You're like, holy man, I'm high. When they're doing something that high, every move they make is exaggerated down low. So I got a good swing going.
Trying to control the swing here. He's got a big swing going on. Just because of the amount of cable that's going out.
How much cable do you have out?
About 150 feet. Someone's on the ground. Broke positive contact. Easy left.
He's trying to put me on, and I keep missing it, and I'm not going right to the spot I want, just staying calm. I'm watching the cable. It's right above that knife edge, just barely contacting it. So I'm just like, geez, I don't want to get a cable rub, because then I'm sheared off over 200-foot free fall.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Sitting there.
There was a person that had gone out hiking and had not returned.
So this cliff is huge.
We have a very high-risk hoist to do.
We are 100% going to be rubbing on that cliff edge. Trying to control the swing here. He's got a big swing going on.
I'm watching the cable. It's right above that knife edge, just barely contacting it. So I'm just like, geez, I don't want to get a cable rub, because then I'm sheared off over 200-foot free fall. And I'm not very graceful, so I'm going to go bouncing like a bumble.
And Source on the ground, making his way. Easy left, hold. That's about as far as I can get you.
He's just about there.
He's at the survivor.
I'm saying to the guy, stay there, stay calm, we got you, don't move. He seemed pretty content. He said, hey, I need to ride out of here. I need to get off this cliff. I've been here since 2 o'clock. I'm like, man, this guy's been here a while.
Wrapping the strap around him.
Stuff getting blown down the hill.
There's debris flying off the top of the cliff, twigs, bushes, branches, rocks. So I got a helmet on, I'm not worried. But worried about this guy getting knocked in the head, so not a good place to be at.
I have ready to pick up, so easy right. Never bringing cable.
One of the more hazardous phases of this hoist is exactly when Claude is about to take the survivor off of his stable position, off of that little point on the cliff. Claude sticks his arm out, points it over the water. That's the sign. It's time to back away from the cliff, and that's exactly what we do.
Right 20.
You got him. Clear right.
Easy down. Someone's coming up.
Hold 200 feet. Looks good.
I conned the helicopter away from the cliff, dropped altitude, and I raised them up, pulled them both in the cabin.
Someone's survivor outside cabin. Bring someone survivor inside cabin. Someone survivor inside cabin. And I'm going to be inside the cabin door.
As soon as we got the hiker inside the cabin, put a blanket around him, he looked extremely cold. 21 hours on a ledge in near freezing conditions and rain all night. I was probably more shocked that he was doing as well as he was than he was.
How'd you get there? You clocked out?
From the ground, it looked like that was the top, and I started climbing up, and once I got a certain height, I realized I wasn't going to be able to get all the way to the top, and by then it was too late.
Good out. You all right, though? I mean, you look like you didn't get hurt, you didn't fall at all, no damage or anything?
It's a really good feeling to know that he was okay, we got him off the cliff. It's quite amazing to see 4 different people doing 4 different tasks inside that helicopter come together and rescue someone.
Jason.
Sir.
Outstanding.
Yeah, that was smooth.
That was, that was good all around. Good backups on everything. That was perfect.
My name is Matt. I work for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. I probably left camp about 1:30. By 2 o'clock, I knew I was in trouble. Because of where I was, I knew the only way that anyone was going to pull me off that cliff was the Coast Guard helicopters. Sitting on the side of a cliff with a 100-foot drop, the biggest thing was to make sure that I wasn't going to fall asleep. After sitting there for 21 hours, I saw the helicopter coming around. And then it was just kind of a waiting game for someone to actually notice me.
The Coast Guard has been something that's been part of my life since I was a little kid. I'm glad they came. They were on it, and I was extremely happy to get off that rock face alive because I'm pretty sure the only other way off was going down.
I couldn't sleep at all. Didn't sleep a wink. So just kind of taking its toll on me. I'm dragging a little bit. No sleep.
We're on day 2 for survival training here in Bjorka. A lot of people were really cold in their shelters, but the exercise is about surviving, not comfort. You know, we're not camping, we're not hanging out around the bonfire out here. They have very minimal equipment to work with. Only what they would have on them if they were flying. It's not comfortable, but it will keep you alive.
So
40.
40.
We gave the teams a bearing, and we've sent them out for random distance in the woods, and they needed to get a sustainable fire going.
Do you want to go fat end down here since this is our fire spot?
It's a wet environment. All the wood is wet, all the vegetation, the whole place is just soaked. It's going to be a pretty good challenge. We can maybe find some more right here. I think they're already
getting kindling and stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a good fuel source for the fire.
As we're building the fire, the 2 lessons are patience and preparation. You have to have everything ready to go, and you have to be patient. If you get too eager, you dump too much wood on too quickly, you're going to put the fire out.
There we go.
The tinder's pretty easy to light, but a fire that you can sustain for hours and hours, it's very difficult, and it requires lots of skill.
Pretty rewarding to be able to walk into the middle of the woods and start a fire in the wettest environment ever. But it's not lit yet. If you look, there's nothing underneath of it that can burn.
I think she's done.
Our foundation was jammed up. I don't think we should have it on this wet piece of bark. We got the kindling going, and we kind of went about it our own way, and it went out. So we moved locations, got some more kindling, and restarted it again.
You can see which way the flames are blowing.
You want to put something underneath the...
Yep. Now you got your nice bridge, got airflow. Lay those things on. Nope, all over the bridge like this.
Difficult, frustrating, yes, but they still got a fire. In the rainforest in Alaska, one of the wettest places in the United States. So that's a pretty big confidence builder right there.
They were rewarded with some brats for them to eat. They've gone about almost 40 hours with very little food.
When you haven't eaten in a couple days and you get rewarded with something as small as 1 hot dog, very big morale booster, and the team, I think we're on a high right now, that's for sure.
As the CO here, it makes me feel really good that if I send my people out, if for some reason they have to set down in the wilderness until we can find them, they can survive and they can take care of themselves.
Okay, well, give me a call when you know, and I'll coordinate fuel with Sandpoint.
Roger that.
Lieutenant Israel Young, I am the ODO for tonight's festivities. Motor vessel / tugboat, name Polar Wind, is hard aground in the vicinity of Pavlov Bay, which is about 30 miles east-northeast of Cold Bay / King Cove. 5 humans on board, looking to get them off before things go too bad.
Taxi out to runway 36 for departure.
Roger.
Hey, James. Tug and barge ran aground just east of Cold Bay, Sandpoint area. You got 5 people on board. The reason why we're going now is because they started taking on water. The 65 is also going, but they're not going to be able to get all of the guys on board in one hoist. So we're going to go out there, do the hoist.
So we got the 6544 on the back of the Sherman. They're in the Beaver Inlet here, just east of Dutch Harbor. Their intent is to take off out of here and head directly to the case. 6003 just took off out of Kodiak. Hopefully they're going to be able to fly over the spine of the island so they can head direct, but they're going to be fighting some pretty significant headwind.
Send the basket outside.
The winds are pretty bad. The wind would come up and blow down and blow us around pretty good. It was definitely a more difficult hoist that I've did before.
They're ready for pickup. Right, 20 seconds of load.
Night, pitch dark. The only light I had was really from the helo, and it being dark, the wind howling, deck being slippery, it was definitely a challenge.
Okay, James. Second barge ran aground just east of Coal Bay, Sandpoint area. And they got 5 people on board, started taking on water.
So we got the 6544 on the back of the Sherman. They're in the Beaver Inlet here, just east of Dutch Harbor. Their intent is to take off out of here and head directly to the case. 6003 just took off out of Kodiak. Hopefully they're going to be able to fly over the spine of the island so they can head direct, but they're going to be fighting some pretty significant headwind.
What's our ETA to put in the 65's ETA? 3.5 hours to Coal Bay.
2 or 3 places always have 40-knot winds. You know, you go through the summer, you're happy, it's all milk and honey, and now wintertime's here and everybody starts earning their paycheck, especially the mariners around here. They're much braver than I am. I wouldn't do it.
It's pretty crazy to have this much fog or mist with 30 knots of wind. You guys good back?
Yes, sir.
I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
Cold Bay is at least 3 hours on a good day to get from Kodiak down there. We had a lot of headwind and bad weather all the way down.
There in 20 minutes. I would suggest, depending on how well the first hoist goes, to not call hoist complete in between.
Roger.
Once the survivor's out of the basket, I just send it right back down with the trail line. Yes, sir.
We got there first with the H-65. Based upon the weather and the conditions, we decided that it would be best to hoist initially 3 of the survivors and then leave our rescue swimmer with 2 of the survivors to keep them relatively safe.
You have the barge in sight, sir?
Got lights off the nose.
Got door speed?
Yeah, door speed.
Roger, cabin doors coming up.
Alright, it's going to be a trail line delivery of the basket 3 times to the aft end of the tug from approximately 75 feet. Questions?
No questions?
No questions. Brief's complete.
Roger. Stand by while I get some stuff ready in the back.
Roger.
The plane was bouncing up and down pretty good. I was trying to maintain a steady hover, but the wind gust, probably 40, 50 miles an hour, just picked us up and dropped us down. Waves were definitely washing over the back of the tug there, and those guys were pretty anxious to get off.
And rescue checklist complete, ready for 1 basket delivery to the tug, followed by 2 more with trail line. The basket's going outside cabin door. Forward 5. This is good. Basket's on deck.
When we got on scene, there was already a swimmer that got left behind by the 65, so we didn't have to use our swimmer.
Survivors getting inside the basket. Waiting for the ready pickup signal.
The moving boat definitely made it scramble because it was not consistent. The waves were not consistent, and boat deck being slippery, wind howling, it definitely made putting those survivors in the basket a little bit harder.
Taking the load. Basket's clear of the vessel. Basket's halfway up, trail line still on deck.
The winds are pretty bad. The wind would come up and blow down and blow us around pretty good. Definitely a more difficult hoist that I've did before.
Survivor is inside. Send the basket outside.
It was a challenge. Night, pitch dark. The only light I had was really from the helo, and it being dark, the wind howling, deck being slippery, it was definitely a challenge.
And second survivor is getting inside the basket. Basket's clear of the vessel. Basket is outside cabin door. Survivor outside of the basket. Disconnecting hoist hook. Hoist complete.
Go back to the tug to recover the rescue swimmer.
Roger. And I'm ready to the back. Rescue checklist complete. Ready for 1 swing recovery of the swimmer from 75 feet.
Alright, you get the way?
Roger. Target in sight. Position's good. Swimmer's at the hook.
Safety is always a concern for us because we kind of know that if we can't do it, you know, there's going to be a very, very thin amount of people that can do it.
And you are clear of the vessel. Swimmer is outside of the door. Roger. Hoist complete. Cabin doors closed, ready for forward flight.
Roger. Good job, guys.
That was one of the tougher ones I've done so far.
The hoisting evolution was really short due to the fact that the swimmer from the 65 stayed on the vessel and get the 3 hoists just real quick. Made it real nice to get out of there, other than, the gusting conditions and the waves.
Good job, Mike. Thanks. Job up front as well. Thanks.
Those guys look happy to be off their ship. Look pretty tired.
I felt that we'd done a job well done at the completion of the mission. I was happy that everybody got off safe, and it does feel good that you're actually helping somebody. But it was nice to get some rest afterwards because we were pretty beat.
Year-old male. He's got a knee injury about 7-8 miles outside of the city of Cordova.
This hiker had injured his knee in a cabin surrounded by some very deep snow. It was at least 8 to 10 feet, and we knew that a hiker would have an amazing amount of trouble getting out of there with an injured knee.
All right, so 69-year-old male. He's got a knee injury and can't walk around very well. About 7-8 miles outside of the city of Cordova in the mountains.
The 69-year-old male was hiking up to a cabin and had fell through the snow with one of his legs, and he twisted his knee. That's when they decided to call us because he was unable to hike back down from the cabin. It was a 3.5-mile hike.
The couple of areas that are available for landing may not be the best. We'll probably end up hoisting him to the deck. He'll go into the cabin, find out whether we can use a basket or whether we want to put him in a litter and package him, depending on how much he can flex his knee, and go from there. Okay.
Rescue 6003, en route to STAR. We have 5 POB, over.
3 sector, have you latch clear, over.
It was necessary to have a helicopter in this situation. This hiker had injured his knee in a cabin surrounded by some very deep snow. It was at least 8 to 10 feet, and we knew that a hiker would have an amazing amount of trouble getting out of there with an injured knee.
You can see what they said about the snow. It's still kind of snowy. The cabin should be very, very close. There it is.
It was a short flight, maybe 5 or 10 minutes away. We located the cabin pretty quickly. It was on top of a kind of a snowy knoll, and it had a red roof, so it was easy to spot amongst the snow and the trees.
There's our guy. However, I wouldn't feel comfortable landing in this area. Snow depth is unknown. Get another look as we come around here.
Once we got on scene, there was a lot of snow in the landing area. It was a really small landing area, so we thought about maybe hoisting the swimmer down, littering the guy up, or maybe put him in a basket.
There is an area in there, but it's also so deep of snow cover that I wouldn't feel comfortable completely landing in there. Looks like fairly deep snow, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like at least several feet thick.
We would sink in there pretty good if that was the case. It's hard to tell what's under that, but I could possibly keep power on in there to keep us light on the wheels.
We opted not to do the hoist, but to actually put wheels on deck, but keep power on to keep us as light as possible so we didn't sink into the snow.
The biggest concern of me touching all the way down with the snow depth, but we can manage that with hover. If we run into any problems on the way, we'll wave off. And searchlight is on crew port ready for approach.
Ready for approach.
When we go to do an approach on a rough area landing, something like that, it was pretty confined. I'm looking around. I want to make sure that we're clear of the trees, the tail, as well as the rotor blades, and also nothing's going to come up through the plane.
Plenty of room on the tail.
You might clear down.
Yes, you are. Clear down. Easy down.
We got pine trees
You're
over
clear
here.
aft. You're clear on the right. Easy down. Tail is just about touching. Another foot. Tail is touching. Mains are barely touching.
I'm going to leave it right here.
Roger, you look good.
Get on, boots on deck, coming around the nose.
I jumped out, went and talked to the patient, asked if he was able to walk, and he was, so I grabbed him and we walked back inside the helicopter.
All right, he's looking good. He's almost in.
The helicopter's producing enormous winds off that rotor head, so the swimmer was helping him, and so they're basically going against maybe 100-mile-an-hour winds. So it's really, it beats you around a lot.
1, 2. All right, he's in. Swimmer's getting in. Roger. Good job, good job. Feeling power, 7 in the mighty. 6 Tango. All right, and what I'm going to do is a max power takeoff. You're getting out of the snow, all right? Roger. Coming up. Clear all around. Closing the door.
On the flight, I got him situated to where he was comfortable. Looked at his knee, did a focused exam of it, noticed some swelling and some bruising.
In this case, a helicopter was best. Through that much snow, it would have been very, very difficult, if not impossible, for a hiker to make it out with an injured knee like this one had.
The snow's 10 feet deep in the open there. Yeah, that's crazy. Break through, and all of a sudden the leg got flexed, and I was trying to tell myself it wasn't serious, but you get the sense that it could really go bad if I don't take care of it.
Yeah, something definitely want to take care of.
If you need anything, to train?
No, I was just telling this gentleman I went to Coast Guard OCS.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I was half a diopter short of my helicopter training.
Really?
And I've always looked at these with great pride, and now I have a whole nother dimension to look at.
Great.
Coast Guard, yeah. Every time I see reference to Coast Guard, it's a proud thing as far as I'm concerned.
It was an excellent feeling to be able to help out. Our hiker, being a former coastie, had actually wanted to be in flight school himself. And at least he got a flight in our helicopter today. I think it gave him a little bit of a thrill.